Hello everybody. So today will be a bit longer. I was thinking lately what immigration could actually contribute to the economic growth of South Africa, right? We have a very high unemployment rate, there's a certain political pressure against low-skilled foreigners. And the funny thing is that obviously some economic research worldwide, but even in South Africa, although that's very limited and unfortunately very limited, and I wish the universities, somebody would conduct a little bit more research there. But the evidence is clear that skilled migration is definitely growing the economy, okay? So, and I think if you speak to any business owner here really in South Africa, the skills shortage is a real threat for growing the economy and the business. So I'm talking today about 6 suggestions, in my opinion, how to grow the economy with certain changes on the immigration side. Okay. So number 1, and they're not really in an order of importance. I think they're all important. But number 1 would be the introduction of the digital Nomad visa. Okay. South Africa is already quite late, comes late to the party. About 50, I'm not quite sure, 50 to 60 countries have already introduced something similar. The Western Cape government has suggested something about a year ago, I think May 2021. We are now filming this end of February 2022. And so far we have done nothing. The president has said it will come. I just wonder when. But I think the important part is on the digital nomad visas to understand that these people are usually highly qualified, and what happens to them is what I witnessed for 20 years now since I'm doing what I'm doing, that they fall in love with South Africa, with the people, with the energy, with the beauty. And once they fall in love with the country, well, they usually want to stay, or they want to invest, or they call friends and invite more over, etc. So the economic spin-offs are quite substantial. So I think from a PR perspective, while the first visit of the digital nomad might not yield incredible economic growth, it will be useful for tourism, obviously, but the long-term effects, I think, are really, really important and shouldn't be underestimated. The fact is that a lot of companies in Europe, in America, are rewriting their HR policies, digital working a month away, 3 months away, sometimes even 6 months away. There's a tax problem over 6 months, but usually under 6 months is not a problem. A lot of companies are offering that to their staff. And I mean, the European winter or the Northern Hemisphere winter to come to South Africa is a perfect place due to the time zones, right? We can service Asia, we can service at least the East Coast of America, and obviously the whole of Europe. So it is the place to be, and we should attract people. And I think the common theme of all the digital nomad visas would be to offer it for a year. You must offer an option for the families to come with. Without family, you're not competitive internationally. Usually there is a minimum salary requirement, and I would suggest something between maybe $2,000 to $3,000 US. That would put us nicely in line with Croatia, for instance. And then probably you want to require international health insurance, a police clearance certificate probably, and the place of submission should be, like with all the other visas, the South African missions abroad, so we can screen the foreigners who want to come for a year outside our borders. So that would be in the interest of Home Affairs, and we wouldn't deviate really tremendously from current practices. Okay, so yeah, I think that would be urgent to do. As I said, we're already coming late to the party. It's a PR campaign really, and I would potentially yield tremendous spin-offs in the future and long term. Okay. Number 2, critical skills. Now it becomes a bit more complex, a bit longer, but I'm trying to keep it simple because there's other videos here on this channel you can look, because I've done, spoken about critical skills updates more than once, as a matter of fact. I think we need to accept that in certain areas our economy lacks vital skills. Okay. The government accepts that because they issued a new critical skills list, and obviously the skills they're looking for are in demand. Now, the criticism I have is that for a lot of positions, the NQF level was increased dramatically or substantially. And for a lot of positions, there's a minimum level of an NQF level 8 required. Now that translates into bachelor degrees with an honors, okay, so an honors degree. And a lot of people who studied business administration for 3 years and afterwards went to work for big companies for 10, 15 years, they only have a bachelor degree. That's a level 7. Now these people might be already on a current critical skills visa, but they cannot extend it unless they study again. Or, and that would be my suggestion obviously to the Department of Home Affairs, you need to come with some sort of directive probably to accommodate and take into account practical experience. I understand that we want to attract the brightest. I get it. An NQF level 8 is high. I think a 7 would have been enough. But if it's 8, you should cater for practical experience as a suggestion. Okay. Number 2, the permanent residence. Now the permanent residence people or people on critical skills visa who wanted to apply for permanent residence for the last 2 years were a little bit in a pickle because permanent residence was closed. So they couldn't, although they qualified. Now, after the most recent change, it seems that they still can't submit based on the old list because they don't qualify potentially anymore under the new list. Now, I don't even find that fair, but be it as it may, I also don't find it in the interest of the country because they might have been here for 3 or 4 years already contributing significantly to an employer, and now they will have to leave because they cannot extend their temporary residence and they cannot apply for permanent residence and make South Africa their home, so we will lose these skills. Okay, Home Affairs might say, well, that's okay because they're not on the new critical skills list, so we have these skills in South Africa. But I doubt that very much because some of the professions are clearly still in high demand, although they're not featuring on the new list. So I suggest that we allow holders of critical skills visas issued under the old list for 2 years to apply for permanent residence based on the old list. Okay, why 2 years? Well, it could be 3, could be 4, but why not 2 years? Kind of sets off the 2 years where it was closed, right? So that's the idea behind it. And then, as you all know, foreign graduates of critical skills subjects do not automatically qualify or can apply anymore for permanent residence. That's a decision we have to accept, but I suggest at least an automatic right to work for 2 years, okay? We have the best universities in Africa. A lot of Africans are studying in South Africa. It is a mistake not to offer these people who we educate a chance into the job market. So give them 2 years automatic right to work. Other countries in the world, like Australia, are doing that. And it will not really influence the unemployment rate really badly because we're talking about graduates in critical skills subjects. I'm not talking about foreign graduates in general. I'm only talking about foreign graduates in critical skills subjects. Give them an automatic right to work for 2 years. And then, well, let's see what happens then. Okay, then they need to obviously comply with the normal immigration visa regulations. And then lastly, on critical skills, and then I'm done with critical skills, I do think it was a mistake to remove the job seeker option. Under the old regime, there was a job seeker option. So basically, you got a 1 year critical skills without an offer of employment. That is not possible anymore. You need an offer of employment. I don't think this is wise. A lot of young, highly qualified people do not find a job from overseas while being in overseas. Fact is, they need to come to South Africa and look here for a job market, make networking, join networks, and go to interviews. You are closing the door for potentially a lot of talent coming in. Okay, so I do think they should really look at this. Okay, now moving on to the business visa. And when I talk about business visa, I mean the entrepreneur visa, Section 15 of our Immigration Act. So if you start your own business or you buy an existing business, not business travel. Okay, I have really 3 suggestions there, or 3 remarks. Number 1, currently you need to invest 5 million Rand from overseas into the book value of the business. That's the current legislation. This can be waived and reduced in certain sectors. And observation number 1 is that in the old days, this waiver was actually issued by the Department of Trade and Industry. That's the department in charge of recommending the business visas. Now, that department works. They have a good turnaround time of 4 to 8, sometimes 10 weeks, but they work, they're responsive, no problem there. Now, they used to issue these waivers, but now not now, but the last 2 years or 3 years, the Department of Home Affairs issues the waivers. But currently these waivers for reduction of the investment amount below 5 million take up to 10 to 12 months. Now, which business person who wants to invest 2, 3, 4 million into South Africa and wants to start his own or her own business, create employment, wants to wait 12 to 13 months, that's DTI, plus the waiver to start the business here? I mean, there's countries which are also quite attractive with sunshine, stable economies, where you can do it in a month. So if we talk about red tape, if the president talks about reducing red tape, well, 12 months looks like a lot of red tape. Okay, so that needs to be reduced. I suggest, and that's a practical solution, scrap the waiver for business visas at the Department of Home Affairs, give it back to the DTI. They're organized, they're on the ball, and it used to work much better. Okay, so I think, and it might even be in the interest of the Department of Home Affairs because they're completely overworked. I don't want to put them down, but I mean, fact is they cannot cope with the resources they have. So move it out of it and make it work. The DTI used to work on this, and it did work. So just go back. Okay, so that's the waiver. The second suggestion is to reduce the 5 million to 2 million. But I can't really remember, 8 or 9 years ago, I'm doing this for so long. The old investment hurdle was, or threshold was 2 million. Okay, it was then increased to 5 million because I think the DTI was thinking about these big investments and all coming here and building manufacturing plants. While the real job to creation is usually the smaller businesses, right? So, and internationally, 5 million is a lot of money. Singapore, $100,000. UK, depending, is also less. Okay, Namibia, okay, not really a major economy, but that's 2 million. Mauritius, depending on what you do, 50,000 US dollars. Okay, Mauritius is a pretty attractive place for international investors due to double taxation, the location, safe space, etc., etc., etc. Why are we requiring 5 million rand? That's much more than $50,000. So I think that should be reduced to 2 million. And then lastly, and most importantly, and please all the startup people in the world listen, and also maybe Silicon Cape, we need to allow and lobby for third-party funding. So let me explain that. At the moment, it is the current interpretation of the Department of Trade and Industry that the applicant must invest and bring the money from overseas in. If the applicant owns a company and the company invests in South Africa, but the applicant is majority shareholder, that's also fine. But where the problem is are all the startups where you have a young person with a brilliant idea, brilliant programming skills, and in Cape Town we have massive incubators, so does Johannesburg, and we want to compete with Kenya and maybe also Nigeria. And these young people don't have access. There are angel investors, there's private equity investment, so it's third-party funding. Okay, this at the moment is not allowed and doesn't count into the business visa, and I think that's wrong because these funds, they only invest in the business because of the founder or because of the foreigner doing it. There's no other reason why they would do this. It's linked to the person. So why don't we count this as own capital? I mean, in the end, what South Africa wants is we want to have foreign direct investment and we want to create employment. Why does it make a difference that the investor himself had the money, right? So that needs to change. Okay, moving on. Then the next one. Okay, that I call it an investor visa or investor permanent residence if you want to. A lot of countries in the world offer residence by investment. Okay, so basically you invest in the country in various forms, I will come to that later, and you get a residence. Sometimes you even get a passport. But I'm not talking about the passport, I'm only talking about residence, maybe temporary residence, maybe permanent residence, but at least temporary residence. And basically just ask the foreigner to invest a certain amount in the country. Let's make it 5 million rand, 3 million, 2 million, but not below that. And they should invest this either in government bonds, like in other countries, Cyprus, Malta, etc., or in predefined financial products which our world-class financial industry in South Africa will design. So they're safe because the money here in our institutions are world-class, they have top ratings, the foreigners can be sure that this money doesn't disappear, and maybe the institutions can then invest this in the government plans for infrastructure funds or money otherwise needed to build our infrastructure. Okay, so basically you're offering the foreigner, without any strings attached, a residence for 2 or 3 years, ideally a permanent residence, if the foreigner invests X amount, and I would suggest at least 2 million, maybe more, in very secure investment, and they need to hold it for 3 to 4 years, and all this will be done by a financial institution in South Africa, not by the government directly, because otherwise I think the foreigners will not invest there. Now Namibia does something like that. They don't advertise this, okay, but there are options where people literally invest in buying a property, they get an investor visa, and therefore they also get residence. So it is being done, and obviously in Europe there's a lot of countries who are offering the resident by investment, so does the US, etc. Why is South Africa not doing this? We are offering permanent residence to financially independent people, which is good, but the permanent residence takes 3 years to be processed, and the foreigners who have in excess of 12 million rand netto assets worldwide do not have to invest a single cent in South Africa. Now, I'm not suggesting to take this away, because obviously the idea behind is let them get in, they will spend their money here. I agree. But we have these options already. Why don't we say, okay, we create another one and invest in South Africa, and for that you get residence. And that's it. So that would be, I think, a very useful one to attract funds into the country. Then, nearly at the end, the Zimbabwean special permits, ZAP holders, okay? We all know that this, at the end of 2022, they unfortunately are supposed to leave the country. Now, what I suggest is, and that's obviously humanitarian considerations, but it's also an economic consideration. Offer all Zimbabweans who can get a proper offer of permanent employment from a registered employer, offer them a very easy path to a work permit. So do not ask them to follow the normal work permit route with the Department of Labor recommendation and all the other hurdles. Offer them exactly what South Africa currently already practices and offers to foreign spouses of South African citizens, so-called 11.6. Now, foreign spouses of South African citizens, they only have to show an offer of employment to get a spousal visa with an endorsement to work. And I suggest, and the Department of Home Affairs process them, so there's nothing new to learn for the staff, etc. So what I'm just saying, treat the Zimbabweans, or offer the Zimbabweans to be treated similar. I admit that obviously the devil is a little bit in the detail. We need to look at which employers and how long the offer is. That's why I would suggest permanent employment. But with that, we're creating legal immigrants. They're paying taxes because pay as you earn. They're registered employers. So I think that would have a lot of positive effects. And it also obviously takes care that some or most of them have made South Africa their place of living for a lot of years in the past. Okay, and might also avoid certain political turmoil, but that's another consideration. Okay, lastly, and that's a small one, but since I'm just sitting here and enjoying myself, updating you a little bit. If South Africa really wants to be competitive, to attract the brightest and the best, you need to offer foreign spouses of these foreigners the automatic right to work. Okay. Now, I know that's a thorny issue, but countries like Croatia, like Brazil, Argentina, Peru, and I only focus now on more or less similar income levels, are offering this. Okay. So what I'm suggesting is to be very concrete is, if the main applicant is a holder of a critical skills work visa, an intercompany transfer, or the holder of a business visa, the foreign spouses should have the automatic right to work. So their spousal visa should be either issued with an endorsement to work, or blanket, or the legislation should just determine that these spouses can automatically work. Because the fact is that the old role model that only one partner works is a bit old news, right? And fact is also if the spouse can't work in South Africa, they often don't come because both want to further their career and both want to feel useful and contribute. And again, that spouse will obviously pay income tax. So there's a spin-off, and they usually don't take jobs away because they would also probably fall into very highly qualified jobs. Okay. Anyway, these are the suggestions. If you have any questions, please contact us. There you find all the contact details on social media. And yeah, I hope you found this useful. Please share it everywhere and spread the word. Bye-bye.